Hello, and welcome to the first episode of the Scarlet Letter podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Majewski, and I am so excited to finally be here and virtually hanging out with you guys today as I launch this project that I have been very, very excited about working on for the past couple of months. I live in Los Angeles, and as you guys know, LA decided to catch fire in the beginning of 2025. So everything got set back a little bit, but we're back and we're better than ever and so excited. So today is just going to be a little intro episode so you guys can get to know a little bit about me, your host, and then a little bit about why I wanted to start the podcast and why I chose the name, and just so we can get a little bit more comfortable and get to know each other a little bit before you guys decide you want to come and hang out with me weekly. Um, so first, my name is Ash. I've lived in Los Angeles for the past 4 years. I'm a model, sex worker, and digital marketing specialist. So I think I have a little bit of thoughts and feelings and opinions that definitely I felt very passionate about and needed a space to do that. So I thought a podcast would be a fun idea. One of the things that definitely inspired me a lot was when I've had a couple of my friends be guests on other podcasts, and as models and women and sex workers, seeing how they were treated in those spaces was just so disheartening. Just to see, it's easy to get hate when it's you. I mean, it's never easy, but it's easier than watching your friends get that kind of hate. I feel like for me, watching them not have a space where they felt safe to share their stories, even though that's what they were invited on those podcasts to do, it was very misleading. So I wanted to create a space, not only hosted by a sex worker myself, but where those friends will have their voices elevated and help me get everything created. Whether it's other models, OnlyFans girls, cam girls, dancers, go-go dancers, just so many different types of sex workers out here in LA have been so much fun to meet and work with. And I wanted to help give a space for them to come and hang out with me. And you just get to hang out with your friend for an hour in a podcast studio. That sounded like the most amazing idea ever. Also terrifying. I am a little nervous right now, guys, so bear with me. But yeah, that was where my heart was coming from in a space of getting a podcast started. As well as I'm a certified yapper and I love to complain. So I can do that here with you guys. And it's not just for sex workers, it's also for all Los Angeles creatives. So, musicians, photographers, videographers, artists, small business owners, entrepreneurs, everyone can come and have a safe place to talk on a podcast instead of being invited where they kind of make you think it's going to be really professional and safe, and then they hurt your feelings or try and make you look silly or bait you into saying something dumb just because they have a camera and a microphone, and that makes them important enough to be mean to people. That makes me feel so upset. So, this is for everyone. And I also wanted to touch on how sex work can be used in all forms of creative art. And who's to say, the one's taboo, one's not? I want to talk about a lot of different topics of just the differences and everyone's different opinions on it while still being respectful. And yeah, that was my goals, some of my goals and inspo behind getting this started. And then for today's first episode, I just wanted you guys to get kind of comfortable with me, hearing me talk, knowing a little bit more about my past and history and opinions, and see if I'm going to be a host that you guys are going to want to vibe with weekly. Or maybe if you like watching the podcast and you want to apply to be on it, it's for everyone, no matter how many followers you have. You don't have to think that you're so far in your career to be on a podcast. This starting out is where you have to start somewhere. And if you start here with me, that would make me feel so special and fun. So make sure to click the link in the bio if you guys want to apply to ever be a guest, and also support my other socials before we get started. It's going to be Moonkid Ash on Instagram and all other social websites. So some questions that I asked you guys through Instagram today. You guys asked me these weeks ago, and they have just been weighing on my heart, and I've been thinking about them for a while. And a lot of them are actually really good and interesting questions. So definitely a good kickoff to a podcast about sex work, just getting into the big stuff, into the stuff you were afraid to ask that you'd probably never ask somebody in person. Maybe you were a little scared, afraid to hurt somebody's feelings. It's fine here. There's no taboo. Just ask the question. As long as you ask it respectfully, I'm always here to help and answer the best I can. So, jumping right in with this is a question I've actually thought about a lot as someone who is in sex work and does want to be a parent one day. How do you feel about mothers doing SW and how it could affect their kids? I think doing any type of job that's maybe a little bit difficult for a child to understand, or even if they should understand or be in the loop of what I think there's many different jobs that can be hard for kids to really comprehend. And I think as long as you're explaining to your kid what you do in a way that's age appropriate, like mommy's a model, mommy takes pictures, or mommy works online, or, there's different ways to phrase it that's age appropriate at the time. And then there's also ways where you can block entire states from, like if you're a cam girl, for instance, you can block entire states from viewing your content. Obviously, it's never going to be completely, once you do it, anyone can find it. But until that child reaches a certain age, it's really not going to be a problem. Maybe until like high school, when kids get nosy and kids are more educated and they kind of can figure out what's going on more. And then that I think is up to each family individually. I'm also not a parent yet, so I don't think my opinion on this is going to be the most educated and accurate. There's actually a group of Los Angeles sex working moms that I would absolutely love to have on the podcast. That is one of my absolute dreams. So if I get them on there and we can do an entire episode about this topic, definitely one of my dreams. But I think explaining things to kids in age appropriate ways, and it's up to each individual family unit how they are going to go about doing it, as long as everyone is safe. No one's being, hopefully, they're not being harassed by people in their town. Like, kids at school can be mean, but yeah, it's definitely a tough topic, but I definitely would love to have actual sex working moms come on here and share their opinions. I think it would hold a little bit more weight than mine, and I think it would help me learn a lot about what my future might look like as a mom if I continue to do sex work as I grow. So I thought that was a very interesting question and something that I've also thought about a lot. So great question. Love your work. Thank you. Stop. When did you start modeling? I actually started modeling when I was pretty young, but not in a way that's like professional modeling. I had a best friend growing up who was actually a really amazing photographer for her age, and she was definitely learning. And I got to be the guinea pig, so I got to learn how to like pose and work with different lighting. Probably when I was like 15, 16, and then I always stayed really interested in it. And then I decided to move out here and come do freelance modeling when I was 19. So I'm 22 now. So it's been a while. Did you have any fears that your family would know when you began SW? I was horrified. I was less horrified about just my family finding out, but just like everyone in my town, everyone at my work. I'm from Gainesville, Georgia. So it is a little bit more conservative down there. People out here, everyone has an OnlyFans, and people are really curious and open minded to hear me talk about my line of work. Down there, it's a little bit more judgmental and a little bit less they take it a little bit more seriously. So I was really afraid that everyone was going to find out and that they were all going to look at it, and that I was going to get fired, and that I just thought that every way it could go wrong would go wrong. But then it didn't, and it ended up working out really well for me. So, very glad. My family also knows now. They're very educated people. They can put two and two together, but I think they're mainly just very proud of me that I was independent from a very young age. They know that I'm happy. They want to see me succeed. So I've never heard a negative word come out of any one of my family's mouths. And if they do have an opinion on it, that is something negative. I haven't heard it, and I'm grateful that I haven't. So I don't think they do, but if they do, I appreciate them making it not my problem. So, how did you or did you discuss at all with your family that you do sex work or that you were going to start it, and how did it go? I never like came out to them as an adult content creator. I think they just, like I said, put two and two together. I'm so glad I didn't have to have that like sit down conversation. I think I would have sweat through all of my clothes and left crying just because of how awkward that is. But actually, I have had my family send me ideas for more like fashion photo shoots. They're like, "Oh, you could do this." They came out, they watched me walk Fashion Week this past year. They're very supportive, but I'm so very glad that I did not have to sit down and tell them what I do, and that they were able to do the math themselves. That is forever a blessing. When you first started this line of work, how did you deal with the societal outlook on your profession, and how do you cope with it now? So, when I first started my OnlyFans, I was sitting in the garden booth at the Home Depot working my 9 to 5, and I published the page because I was like, I can't do this for one more second. I need to do something different. I want to model. I weighed the pros and cons. I really did a lot of research before I did it. So I did it. I launched the page. But as much as I was so sure and I had done the research, I was so full of anxiety. I'm a very anxious person. And so I panicked and I was like, oh my God, everyone at my job's gonna find this. They're gonna see it. How is that gonna make me feel? Like, what if I can't get a job in the future? Like, I was so worried. And so I deleted the page after it being up for 24 hours, and I waited until I came out here. And then I did my first photo shoot in a studio with like a real photographer. I got the pictures back and I loved them so much. All I wanted to do was show everyone, because I had turned something that made me feel so shameful about like growing up Catholic. There's always that like initial shame there, feeling that my body and my sexuality, especially as a woman, especially as a queer woman, that I was doing something wrong. And when I got those pictures back and I saw how beautiful they made me feel, and I was able to share them with people, and then it made those people feel good as well, it took that shame away, and it made me feel like I was in control, and that I turned something that made me feel shameful into something that should have always made me feel beautiful. And now I feel very beautiful doing my sex work. So that's kind of how I cope with it now. I definitely still get the comments, especially when I have a video that does really well. There will be a lot of mean and abusive comments, but they don't bug me because the support from my fellow sex workers, fellow models, people that are also LA creatives, how kind and supportive they are in their comments shine a million times more than some dude hiding behind his computer that probably feels ashamed of his own sexuality. And so seeing another woman own it and be proud of it, that makes him feel some type of way. And that just, I have sympathy, and I hope that they are able to be comfortable with themselves to where me living my life doesn't make them feel that way. I try to find empathy and understanding with it, but sometimes they are real nasty and they get to me. But what is it? OF detected, opinion rejected is not creative to me, and it is not going to send me home crying. I've always been interested in sex work, but I cannot think of a good contingency plan when it comes for a career once the career is no longer viable. Are most sex workers just heavily investing their money in the stock market and early retirement? What are your options for full-time jobs with benefits after you quit sex work? So this is a great question that I had to think about a lot before starting, because it's like, Is this something I'm going to want to do forever? Is this something that is viable income? It's not just snap a pic of your ass and make $1 million. There is a lot of work that has to go into it. I am curious what you mean by once the career is no longer viable. If that terminology is referring to like once you're too old to like be sexy, that is so far down the line. There is MILFs, GILFs, there is something for everybody, just feet pics. There's literally just voice stuff, just phone stuff. There's literally so many different outlets that the career would only be no longer viable if I physically could no longer do the job or if I was no longer happy. But if I could physically no longer do the job, all the content I have created is mine to sell forever. So if I made a video today and let's say next month I missed filming a video that month, I can sell the video I made today next month. And, the content is yours and you own it forever. So, and then there's also, we should do I definitely want to do an entire episode about finances of OnlyFans because so many people do so many different things. It's kind of like child actors make all of their money and then some of them, they put them in different like savings accounts. Some people do invest. Some people are into crypto. Some people have other jobs. Some people do multiple things. So it's different for a lot of people, but I think it would be really interesting to get a group of girls together and talk about like ways that they have optimized their income and kind of look at it from a digital marketing specialist kind of viewpoint, because that's something that obviously I do and I find very interesting. So great question. Definitely want to, because I could sit here and talk about what I do, but I think I want to have a little more planning on what finances should be shared on the internet, if you know what I mean. But yeah, I think getting a group of girls together and talking about the different ways people plan for the future is a really good podcast episode idea. So, well, I'm not even sure how long I've been talking at this point, but for this episode, I did just, want to hang out with you guys virtually for a little bit and answer some of the big questions that are themes that I want to have full episodes on going forward so that you guys can see what kind of episodes we're going to have, talking about finances, about motherhood, about hate on the internet, about what it takes to even get started, if it's something that other people want to do, if how you get it going, different themes and different episodes. So there's definitely a lot of that coming. I definitely want to have ideally weekly episodes, but I am going to need you guys to bear with me here for the next couple of weeks while we find our home studio space. So once again, thank you all for tuning in with me for this very fun and intellectual, hopefully, first episode of the Scarlet Letter. It's been so nice to meet you. Once again, my name is Ash. Please do not hesitate to DM me or fill out the application to be a guest on the podcast. I'd love to meet you and have you in here talking with me. And of course, please support all of my other socials, my Instagram, TikTok, and of course, follow here on Spotify podcasts and YouTube podcasts. So hopefully I will see you guys very soon with another episode of the Scarlet Letter.